Hi, this is Sherry Andrea. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you and thank you for joining me again. If you are new to my videos, thank you for taking a listen. And for those of you who have been following and listening to the videos as I put them out, thank you, very much. And thank you for your kind comments. And for those of you I've talked to on the phone and done coaching sessions with, who've given me your feedback, thank you. I really appreciate you. And actually, this video is actually kind of about that. This video is about what several of you have mentioned to me, and it's not uncommon, and I figured I'll talk about it. It's very interesting. First of all, when I've done coaching sessions or readings for some of you, and you've expressed that you listen to my videos often, you've mentioned to me that you have a hard time staying awake, that often you fall asleep. And that you have to attempt to listen quite a few times before you've actually listened to the whole video. And that is actually not uncommon. Still happens to me today, and I figured let's talk about why that happens. First of all, I'm going to give you an example that I think actually, after I give you this example, you'll probably have an aha moment and you probably won't need me to explain it further. But as I've mentioned to some of you before, I used to listen to, and occasionally I still do, Lee Carroll's channeling of Kryon at Kryon.com. He's got a lot of audios there that aren't transcribed that you can also listen to. And many of these audios are an hour plus in length. So none of them are really short. You won't go there and find a 15-minute audio to listen to. Pretty much they're all over an hour's length. And so that would happen to me often. Often I would be listening, whether I'm sitting up or laying down or relaxing on the sofa, it doesn't matter. I would fall into a very, very deep sleep. I would wake up literally feeling like, not quite like I had missed the channeling and missed what was being said, but almost as though during that time I had gone somewhere. Like, yes, I fell asleep, but at the same time, no, I didn't quite fall asleep. It literally felt like I literally went somewhere. And I would often wake up feeling very refreshed, often very healed, definitely very affected by the energy. And the thing is, for example, if you were to, let's say you're out and about somewhere and you run into a very antagonistic person and you get into an argument with them. Well, does that person's words not affect you? Of course they do. Words have power. Words hold a vibration. So, and often, sometimes you know how people are quick to say, oh, well, I didn't have any bad intentions by it, or I didn't mean anything bad. Well, even though a person may not mean anything bad, may not actually mean you any harm, it may not be their intention to harm you, but however, not just what they say, but the words they use to say it, the energy that they've got going on within them at the time they say it actually can be harmful to you. So, it's really great when somebody comes out with a statement like, well, it's just my opinion and I have the right to express it, or, oh, well, I didn't intend to hurt your feelings. That's great. However, as most of you know from listening to me talk about karma, of course, that doesn't let you off the hook with karma. So, the first thing to understand is words have power. Words have a vibration. There are high vibrating words and then there are low vibrating words. If you say to somebody, I hate you, of course, that phrase has a vibration. There's energy. And as it's spoken, it leaves the mouth and goes to the person it's intended for. So whoever that person's speaking to, and it in fact, does affect them. It goes in them, it affects them, And now some people say, oh, you got to have thick skin. Yes, that's true. You might have thick skin and those words on the outside may not bother you. However, you still may be being affected by the energy, the vibrations that they have that are going towards you, that are coming at you. So, even though you have a thick skin, that doesn't mean that you're not being affected. It just means outwardly, you've learned to control yourself. Maybe outwardly and inwardly, I could say. You may have learned to control yourself and not let yourself be, for example, emotionally affected by it. You may have learned to control yourself to the point where you don't allow your ego to rear its head because of it. But that doesn't mean you're not affected by that energy that's being sent towards you. So I use that example. It's like an extreme example as compared to what we're actually talking about when we're talking about you falling asleep while you're listening to someone speak, or you're listening to someone's channeling. And I know some of you, the thought probably came to mind, oh, is that why I couldn't stay awake in college? No, that may not be the reason why. It may have just been boring for you. Because I can relate. So I wanted to explain to you, you're being affected by the energy. So when I used to listen to Lee Carroll's channelings of Cryon, I was, there is not only the vibrations and the energy that Lee Carroll has going on and that Lee Carroll is holding. Then there is also the energy and the vibrations of that energy he's bringing through him. That is that spirit, or that the spirit Cryon, which I say spirit, but really it's an energy that he's bringing through him. So it's not only his energy and his vibrations and what level he's achieved and how his speech can be effective. He could probably, and those of us who have done that, who have raised our vibrations really, really high, we could probably sing the alphabet and it would have an effect on you. It's not because the alphabet, the letters are high vibrating, but it's also about what we have, how we've changed ourselves, the alchemy of how we have changed ourselves in increasing our vibrations and advancing spiritually to a higher level. So it's not just that the words have power, it's that the person also may have garnered some power from their advancing spiritually. So at every level, you have, you could think of it as you have an effectiveness at every level. So it doesn't matter what level you're at. Either way, at that level, you have a certain level of effectiveness when it comes to what your energy does to people, good or bad. So, for those of you who have been falling asleep, or maybe, and I know this has happened to me, the first time I heard the choir of 144,000 angels was while I was listening to Lee Carroll channel Cryon. No, I wasn't listening that time. I was actually reading the transcript. But see, they transcribe some of the audios, and they not only transcribe them, but they purposely are also imbuing them with the energy of Cryon. Somewhat similar to the way that I've imbued the energy into the attunement videos that I create, so that every time somebody listens to it, they get that energy. Well, the same thing can be done with writing or any medium. Even if it's a painting, it can be imbued with energy. And so that every time somebody reads it, there's this energy that they're being affected by. And so I was reading one of Cryon's channelings, and halfway through it, you know how you stop suddenly because you're you think you hear something, but you're not sure, and so you go back to reading or doing whatever you're doing, and then you stop again. You're like, I swear I hear something. And I stopped, and I closed my eyes, and I tried really hard not to concentrate, because you know how it is. Once you try to concentrate or really, really focus on listening, you really can't hear. So I tried to just close my eyes and just relax, and there it was. The most beautiful music I'd ever heard. Nothing that I've ever heard is even comparable, and I can honestly say I have tried to describe it here and there over the years to people. I've never been able to adequately describe it. It is something that you would have to hear for yourself, because there just are no words to describe it. But I was being affected by the channeling even though I was reading. And I'm sure some of you can understand that, or you're thinking right now of some book that you read that you swore had an effect on you, and maybe you told people about it and you were like, yeah, I've been reading this book, and wow, I can't even explain to you that my life has changed. And then when they ask you to explain how, in what way, you just can't seem to explain it. And explain how just reading a book is so affecting you. It's because the same thing happens with books. When you read a book, or you read information, or you read on a website, you are going to connect. There's going to be a connection made between you and the author or channeler, depending on what you're reading. But you're going to make a connection to them. So, for example, that's a little bit how quantum reading works. Meaning reading a book psychically, instead of actually reading the words, but actually reading it by reading the energy. It's because when you read something, when you read a book, you are connecting to many things. You may, if somebody in the book is talking about someone specific, like let's say you're reading a book where they're talking about Vin Diesel, and they're just maybe they're describing having met Vin Diesel, or they're describing having met this person or that person, and as you're reading it, you will connect to that person. Where your focus goes, that's where the connection goes. So you will also connect to the author, the person who wrote those words and who put so much of themselves into that book, into that creation. Anything that you or a person creates in any way, shape, or form, they are putting their energy into it. They are putting themselves into it, which is the nature of when people make those prayer shawls or a healing blanket. They may be knitting it, and as they're knitting it, they may be praying silently or out loud, or they may just be knitting it while they're focused on something specific. The energy, their energy, and the energy of where their focus is going to go into that thing they're creating. So, when you are reading things, listening to audios, videos, you do have to keep in mind that you will be affected by the energy of the person. If this is like me, a channeler, so I channel my higher self. So very much when I speak, it is my higher self. So many times the words aren't really mine, and that's why sometimes when people mention some of the, and I hate to admit this, I'm like almost embarrassed to admit it, but sometimes when people mention videos that I've done, and they're going into detail and going, oh, you remember this one, and you said this, and I don't remember. Because it's not really me, it's my higher self. And it's like sometimes I'll vaguely remember that video created, but I'll be like, oh my goodness, I can't even remember what I discussed or anything, but it's because it wasn't me. Shortly after I created the video, it was kind of like the memory of it's kind of gone. And that's what happens with channeling. When you've got this energy running through you, once it's no longer running through you and there's a disconnect, kind of like it's no longer flowing, that information is no longer flowing, it fades from your memory. Which actually is a good thing, because this is one way I've told people that it can help to determine whether or not, when they were speaking about something or writing something, whether or not they were really actually channeling that information. Telltale sign. So, but you're affected, and it's not a bad thing. You don't have anything to worry about. It's just that the energy of somebody speaking can affect you in many ways. Sometimes it can give you a boost. Sometimes it could be more healing. I have a friend who is awesome. She's a singer, and she used to sing opera, and we've talked many times, and I had told her so many times, I feel that you'll finally get to the point you need to get to once you finally realize you're not just a singer, you're a healer. Because her singing in the past has been so powerfully affected people in a healing kind of a way. She stopped people from committing suicide simply because they were walking by some event where she was singing, and the sound coming from her so moved them that literally it changed their outlook on everything in an instant. And so I told her, I was just like, you feel like you're having a hard time getting the singing thing going, but that's because you're not just a singer. There are some people out there that are just a singer. She's not just a singer. She's actually a healer. And healing comes in many different ways, shapes, and forms. And she is a healer. It's not just the sound of her music is not just aesthetically pleasing, but it affects people. The energy that she puts out affects people, heals people. And it's really amazing. So just remember that when you're listening to channelings, it's not just the information that you're trying to gain from it. It's that some of the things that you're listening to, that you're allowing yourself to listen to, actually has the ability to affect you on a level that will lead to change for you. Sometimes it won't lead to change right away. Sometimes it's just a matter of taking that information in, and at some point in the future, the information will be turned into understanding and then be brought back up to the surface when it's time for you to utilize it. But anyway, I just wanted to, talk and explain to you about the whole falling asleep thing. So don't feel bad if you fall asleep. It's okay. Still happens to me when I'm relaxing and I'm listening to either, Cryon or Muji on his YouTube videos. So it still happens to me too. It can happen to you no matter what your spiritual level is, of course. We all, no matter our level, have the ability to be greatly affected by energy that is put out by various means, by various methods. Anyway, I hope that you found this talk helpful. Feel free to comment. I'd love to hear some of your experiences. And I'm sure that it'll be helpful to others also that are trying to figure out maybe what's going on when they listen to, you know, this person or that person, or they can't seem to stay awake when they listen to this channeling. So I'm sure it would also help others to read your comments as you're sharing your experiences. So please do comment and share your experiences, because I would love to read some of them. Anyway, if you're looking for me, remember you could find me at sherryspeaks.com. Of course, you could also find me on Facebook. I am .sherryandrea. And I look forward to speaking with you again real soon. And I really, really appreciate you. You guys are really awesome, and I love you. Namaste.